As much as life has changed over the last year, you're still pretty busy. So consider convenient COVID-19 testing from Quest. Get the same tests hospitals use without a doctor visit. Simply order online, select from drive-through or at-home options, and get results sent securely to your phone or computer. It's a great fit for your busy life. With over 25 million COVID-19 tests processed, you can count on Quest. So order your test today at questcovid19.com.
At Jewelers Mutual, we're a little obsessed with jewelry. Obsessed like auctioneers with talking fast.
50, we're gonna
pop stars with auto-tune. And dentists with asking questions.
So, how did he propose?
After they've put their hands in your mouth.
Great.
Yes, we've made jewelry our obsession for over 100 years. We love it so much we named our kids Ruby, Amber, and Opal.
Venti soy latte for Opal?
At Jewelers Mutual, we insure jewelry and only jewelry, which is why people who are also obsessed with jewelry trust us with theirs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. According to a new report out in a Norwegian newspaper, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates met in 2013 at the former Nobel Committee chairman's house, Thorbjørn Jagland's. Previously, this same man denied ever having met Jeffrey Epstein. Well, this newspaper, DN, in Norway, did an investigation, and it turns out, I know this is going to shock you folks, I know this is going to be very shocking, but another member of so-called polite society is lying about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And this time, it happens to include Mr. Bill Gates himself. Another one, another marathon runner. Oh, I have no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, believe me. Look how much money I donate. No, I don't believe you. I don't believe any of you. And this is why. This investigative piece by DN explores that meeting between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein and the former Nobel Committee chairman. So let's jump into this article from DN and see what they have to say. This article is from www.dn.no, and like I said, it's a Norwegian newspaper, but this article is translated into English. And I'm guessing they did that for this specific purpose, considering the people that it's dealing with, right? Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates. So let's see what they have to say. Headline: Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein met with Nobel Committee chair. The authors of this article are Tori Gerstad and Gard Osterholm. I'm sorry if I mispronounced those or mangled those. I'm not very good at these sorts of names, obviously. December 2019. Berit Reiss-Andersen, chair of the Nobel Committee, had a question for the members of the committee. Queried by the Norwegian business daily DN, she asked whether they had ever had contact with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender and well-connected financier, pedophile. Former chair Thorbjørn Jagland, by now a regular member of the committee, was among those answering no. Thorbjørn Jagland, huh? How about Thorbjørn Jagoff? Why are you lying about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, buddy? What else was going on? It turns out the answer was yes. Not only did Jagland meet Epstein, he hosted him at his lavish residence in Strasbourg, France. At the time, Jagland was the sitting chair of the committee which awards the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize. Also present, a philanthropist touted as a possible prize recipient. Boy, that sounds nice, huh? Good old Jeffrey Epstein in 2013. Mind you, this is after he's already been convicted. After he's already done time for sex crimes. After he's on the sex offenders registry, everywhere besides, well, New Mexico. But even after all of that, Mr. Jagoffland here thinks it's a great idea to have Epstein over at his house for a little bit of hanging out, some breaking of the bread. And one of those attendees, well, it just happens to be Bill Gates. I mean, just a coincidence, folks. Just a coincidence. They don't know each other. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. One of those attending was Bill Gates, at the time the second wealthiest man in the world and head of the largest charitable foundation in the world. Since leaving Microsoft a few years earlier, Gates had become a dedicated philanthropist. Having invested heavily to eradicate polio, he was among those mentioned as possible candidates for the Nobel Peace Prize. And again, another one, this Bill Gates, gonna wrap himself up in the charities, huh? Oh, I've done this for them, I've done this for them, I've done this for these people. Meanwhile, it's obvious you're moving in circles with convicted sex offenders and you don't care one single bit about it. I wonder if our incredibly awesome legacy media is going to have the courage to ask Bill Gates questions about this when he's up there peddling his vaccine to us. Also present were representatives of the think tank International Peace Institute, who later that year partnered with Gates Foundation in the fight against polio. And look, don't get me wrong, right? If you're a billionaire and you're, involved in charitable works and you're helping people get cured against polio, that's good stuff, right? That is definitely good stuff. But why do you have to hang out with people like Jeffrey Epstein? You can't even say that you didn't know what he was. You can't say, oh, well, I was introduced to him as a fellow billionaire and he had some business proposals for me. Not after he's already been convicted. What, Bill Gates doesn't have Google? Nobody around Bill Gates is telling him that Jeffrey Epstein's an absolute scumbag and that the charge that he was stuck with is not really what he was even up to, that he got a sweetheart deal. Nobody was telling this guy that. If that's the case, Bill Gates needs to get some better people around him. In addition to Gates and his assistants, another financier was also present. A person well known for his network of powerful people and accused of participating in trafficking and sexual abuse. A convicted sex offender. Why was Jeffrey Epstein present in Strasbourg? Well, you know why. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. Right? It's all about the Fazuls. All about the money. And if these people thought that Jeffrey Epstein was going to give them a little bit more money, was going to fund their nonsense, hey, they're all for it. They don't mind that conviction? Psh, she was 17 and it was just prostitution. Come on, like Jeffrey Epstein said. It's like getting a donut or whatever the hell he said when he was talked to about it, when he was asked. So stupid, so ridiculous. And the fact that they try and use the excuse of not knowing, even after the fact, is just enraging. Several $1 million. The Norwegian Business Daily, DN, has spoken to a number of sources familiar with the meeting in Strasbourg and has reviewed documentation that ties Epstein to the meeting. Look, folks, this is really good work by DN. To tell you the truth, obviously, I'm not familiar with Norwegian media for the most part. All I know about Norway is that one of my favorite hockey players is from there. I mean, honestly, I don't, follow Norway at all. But this is really good work that they're digging in here, and that DN, they had a story, right? They knew that there was something more here, and they weren't going to take the narrative being passed to them by these people. They dug deeper, and now they have unearthed this documentation and sources who are putting Jeffrey Epstein at this meeting with the Nobel Peace Prize chairman and Bill Gates. That's a mic drop moment right there. If I was to turn my microphone off right now and end this podcast, that would be enough. That's enough information to make you ill, isn't it? Why would these people be associating with somebody like Jeffrey Epstein? According to the sources, Gates and his assistants were already present when the representatives of IPI arrived. Epstein, who knew Gates, was the person that introduced the billionaire to IPI. How about that, huh? Bill Gates introduced Jeffrey Epstein to IPI. How about that? Oh, excuse me, it was Epstein who introduced Gates to IPI. So, again, nobody's believing the nonsense that Bill Gates is trying to pump to us, right? I know I'm not. I don't believe that this guy didn't really know Jeffrey Epstein. These sort of people are always running around with one another. I mean, we know that Ghislaine Maxwell was being invited to Jeff Bezos' little silly camp retreats all the way up to 2017. The thing is, folks, here's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on this story reemerging. They didn't count on Jeffrey Epstein getting arrested a second time. And they thought all of this was going to be buried in the annals of history. Boy, are they in for one gigantic surprise moving forward. The meeting where IPI introduced Gates to polio eradication project was to be very successful. Later that same year, Gates Foundation granted IPI $2.5 million. Since then, an addition of $6 million has followed, according to the foundation. The most recent grant was earlier this year with an additional $250,000. Wow. I'll tell you, huh? Must be nice to be Bill Gates and have Jeffrey Epstein as your go-between, huh? As your middleman with this IPI group. I mean, are you kidding me right now? Bill Gates has a lot to answer for, and he's another one who has been able to avoid the spotlight, avoid the scrutiny when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. And a lot of that has to do because the legacy media does not want to lose access to Bill Gates. And, of course, all of their bosses, all those executives, they're all boys with Bill Gates, right? They're not going to put him on blast. They hold him up. They put him up on a pedestal. Even though he was hanging out with a convicted sex offender after everybody knew that Epstein was a sicko. That alone, that right there alone, should be enough for him to absolutely never get any airtime again until he answers for it, right? You can't just avoid it. And that's what they all try to do, and with the help of the snakes in the legacy media, that always seems to be the case. The meeting in March 2013 happened several years after Epstein pleaded guilty to charges of soliciting a prostitute with a minor, as well as paying compensation to a number of women. A federal investigation had identified at least 36 survivors, according to the Miami Herald. And this was all known before the fact. Remember, I don't mean to keep saying that, but we have to keep it in context, right? We have to keep our perspective correct. If this was in 1999, then Bill Gates could be like, look, I had no idea this dude was a pervert. I had no idea. And even if we don't believe the story, even if it might be a little bit, all right, yeah, whatever, dude. At least he has a defensible position, right? You have no defense if you were hanging out with this dude and cavorting with him after the fact. As early as 2006, as the investigation of Epstein was underway, some politicians had returned money from Epstein. Later, in 2011, the British Prince Andrew was criticized for maintaining his friendship with Epstein. Last year, Prince Andrew stated he showed poor judgment. Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. Poor judgment? Poor judgment, huh? Despite the verdict, Epstein managed to re-enter the elite after serving his sentence. Last year, the New York Times reported that he kept being included among the powerful of New York City. Anchor Katie Couric and Woody Allen attended dinner at his home in 2010. The following year, he attended a party together with, among others, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, founders of Amazon and Tesla, respectively. Several notable institutions praised him and boasted of his achievements, including the prestigious Harvard University. Now remember, folks, this is all after the fact, okay? This is all after everybody knew what Epstein was, after he served his time. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Katie Couric, Woody Allen. That shouldn't shock anybody. Perverts all hang out together and chill together. So I am not too shocked that Woody Allen is hanging out over at Jeffrey Epstein's, are you? And on and on and on it goes. Are any of these people ever going to answer for this? Are they ever going to give us a straight answer? The only way that's ever going to occur is if the slime balls in the legacy media do their job. Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway met Epstein several times between 2011 and 2013. We talked about this when it was breaking the news that the Crown Princess from Norway met with Epstein. And look, all of these people, all of these so-called elite, all of these royals that were rubbing elbows with Jeffrey Epstein, they have no defense for their behavior, folks. It's unbelievable, okay? It is unbelievable that these people, some of the richest, most powerful people in the world, don't know how to use an internet search engine to take a look at somebody like Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, you're telling me you meet somebody like Epstein and you don't take the time to do a quick, cursory Google search about him? I don't believe that. Last year, she apologized for not scrutinizing his past more thoroughly. Former Prime Minister Kjell Magne Bondevik of Norway met Epstein at a dinner party in 2013, but declined to pursue funding from Epstein, having found out about Epstein's past in a Google search. Well, what do you know, Kjell Magne Bondevik of Norway? You win the prize for actually using Google and taking a look at who you're getting in bed with. Epstein had been suspected of larger number of crimes than was included in his plea deal. Last year, he was arrested in the U.S. and charged with further crimes of trafficking and abuse. He was never charged as he died in custody in August 2019. The coroners found he took his own life. Allegedly. Jagland. Gates and Epstein arrived together. Well, isn't that something, huh? They arrived together? Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein arrived together. Interesting. They must have taken one of those Uber share rides, right? Where you get, you share it with other people, and it just, again, coincidence and happenstance that they ended up in that car together. Last fall, DN published a number of articles on the connections between Epstein's Norwegian contacts between Epstein and his Norwegian contacts and IPI. Since then, the Norwegian Auditor General has opened up an investigation into the relationship between the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the think tank IPI, which has received grants surpassing 130 million Norwegian krones and has several connections to Epstein. Folks, this spans multi-continents like we've discussed. This is an operation that was being helped by so many people in so many positions of power that it is hard to keep track of them all. Even in a place like Norway, a place where I can't even imagine there being any mean people. I know I'm probably wrong, right? Of course, there's corrupt people everywhere. But I think about Norway and I'm like, it's the happiest place in the world, probably. But obviously not. Obviously, the scumbags are international. Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein's network and the rot that it brought with it even infected a place like Norway. During the last year, DN has asked Jagland a number of questions in his association of Epstein. There was no connection of a financial or any other nature to the Council of Europe. Any other Norwegian connections, which I understand the article will be about, I have no knowledge of, he wrote in an email November 11th of 2019. So Jagland is lying about his relationship with Epstein, right? And remember, he's the Nobel Peace Prize committee chair, or used to be. Now he's just on the committee. Just on the committee now. If you're hosting Epstein at your house after the fact that he was already convicted and on a sex registry, etc., you, my friend, have some serious, serious problems. After several inquiries in the last week regarding new information about the meeting, Jagland confirmed that Gates and Epstein attended a meeting at his residence in March 2013 at an official meeting. According to him, Gates and Epstein arrived together. So there you go, folks. Right there is your smoking gun of the Jeffrey Epstein Bill Gates connection. Now, it doesn't mean Bill Gates was involved in abusing children or trafficking women. We haven't heard that yet, right? But it establishes a tie that binds. And this is a strong tie here, right? We have investigative journalists and the man whose house they were at coming forward and saying that they arrived together. So, this totally destroys Bill Gates and his excuse that he hardly even knew Jeffrey Epstein and that they were just introduced one time and all the other nonsense that he would have us believe. They came to my residence with their respective delegations. Bill Gates and Epstein arrived together, followed by the others. I made an introduction on the European system for controlling medicines. After that, the conversation advanced further, Jaglin writes in an email. Again, look, this is the context that we're always talking about, right? The meat on the bone. People can say whatever they want. They can come out with all sorts of outlandish excuses trying to distance themselves from Jeffrey Epstein. But the fact remains that you can't hide from the truth forever, especially when other people witnessed these hangouts. Epstein was not an active participant in the meeting, according to the former prime minister, explaining, Bill Gates asked for a meeting as he visited Strasbourg. He was interested in the Council of Europe's work to safeguard medicines for everyone. The Council of Europe carries a very important international convention on the issue, and counterfeit medicines are a big problem, Jaglin writes. Many countries outside Europe have joined the convention, which embraces the institution European Pharmacopoeia. 350 people are at work in one of the world's most modern laboratories, and all medicines in Europe are manufactured on the basis of standards from this laboratory. Bill Gates and IPI had entered a collaboration to provide polio vaccines to vulnerable tribal areas in Pakistan and Afghanistan. They wanted to learn from Europe, Jaglin writes. And this shit doesn't sit with me right. This private citizen providing vaccines, this guy doesn't have any sort of degree in medicine. I thought we were supposed to listen to the scientists and follow the scientists. This dude should donate the money and then go home and write some computer programs. I know I'm not taking any vaccine that Bill Gates is involved with until it's completely tested and 100% proven effective. I'm not messing around with any of this nonsense. If I'm going to take a vaccine, and I'm totally not against them, by the way, so we're clear, I want it to go through all of the trials and the steps that it has to go through, right? At the time, IPI didn't have a relationship with Gates. The first grant came a few months later in October 2013. 1 month earlier, Bill and his wife Melinda Gates attended an IPI event speaking about the foundation's work to fight polio. Unfortunate. In December 2019, DN asked the chair of the Nobel Committee, Berit Reiss-Andersen, if any member had had contact with Epstein at any time. Having asked them, she answered that, among others, Jaglin had never been in contact with Epstein. So Jaglin lied about that. Epstein was the one who introduces Bill Gates to this IPI group. And now, in 2019, the DN, they asked the chair of the Nobel Committee, Berit Reiss-Andersen, about it. And she says, no, nobody had any meetings with Epstein. No way. Meanwhile, Jaglin had these people at his house. Other people knew, and they left Berit Reiss-Andersen here swinging in the wind. I passed DN's questions to Jaglin, and he answered in the negative on any contact with Epstein. Yesterday, Jaglin explained there was a misunderstanding, which I accept. Naturally, it's unfortunate that I gave an answer that turns out not to be correct, Reiss-Andersen writes Wednesday. I might have gave you a bit of misinformation there, folks. Jagoff, is doing his best Baghdad Bob impersonation, obviously. She adds that it's obviously unfortunate that DN was misinformed. Jaglin explains the omission to Reiss-Andersen as follows. When answering Berit Reiss-Andersen in December last year, I had in mind DN's crazy and absurd conspiracy theory that I had had dinner with this person in Paris in June. There might have been a misunderstanding, which I take full responsibility for and apologize. At that time, DN had asked Jaglin repeatedly if he ever had met Epstein, including in Paris in 2019. So this outlet, DN, had asked him on multiple occasions if he had meetings with Epstein, and he denied it. And then the information comes out. And then he starts with the whole, well, it was a misunderstanding. That's all it was. I mean, I don't know how anyone can believe these so-called members of polite society at this point. The Gates Foundation. DN has presented the Gates Foundation with a number of questions. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation works with the International Peace Institute, an organization dedicated to promoting peace and security, to gather critical analysis that supports our efforts to improve health in Pakistan and Afghanistan, the Communications Department wrote in an email Friday. Okay. And following new inquiries, the foundation has never had any financial dealings with Epstein. We work with the International Peace Institute, a grantee that supports our efforts to improve health in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Lawyers for Jeffrey Epstein's estate have not responded to DN's inquiries. And this is where the money laundering comes in, right? And all of the shady bank dealings. If the money is not being tracked correctly and it's not being documented, of course Bill Gates and his group can say, well, we've never got any money from Jeffrey Epstein. Go look at the financials. Meanwhile, we all know that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just operating within the parameters of the bank, right? So he can say that all he wants, and the foundation can say that all they want, but I don't believe it. In my opinion, that's not true. And also, the fact that Epstein was the one who introduced him to the IPI is just mind-boggling for me. Saved lives. The polio partnership between Gates and the International Peace Institute still exists. Jaglin writes that it has saved thousands of people living in the most impassable parts of the world. I believe it is of great value to make this contribution, given Europe's involvement in the area. IPI has several links to Epstein, including through a donation of $375,000 from one of his foundations. Several press releases from Epstein's organizations are about the partnership with the think tank. So Jeffrey Epstein is funding vaccines for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan? I don't know about you folks, but I think I'd be steering clear of anything medicinally that Jeffrey Epstein or Bill Gates were involved in. Holy hell, folks, what in the world is going on? Questions sent repeatedly to IPI President Rod Larson about his relationship to Epstein have gone unanswered. Rod Larson did not attend the meeting in Strasbourg, but he is a known acquaintance of Jaglin. The two have been friends for several decades, and Rod Larson was named a cabinet secretary by Jaglin in 1996. When Jaglin became ill during a leadership fight in the Norwegian Labour Party in 2002, he stayed with Rod Larson and his spouse, Mona Jewel. At the time, Jaglin presented them as our best friends in a newspaper interview. So Jaglin is locked in Norwegian politics, was, I guess, a big politician over there as well. And this another high-profile politician sitting down and breaking bread with Jeffrey Epstein. But he had no other relations, right? None at all. Neither President Terry Rod Larson nor IPI's communications department have responded to questions for this story. Of course they haven't. They don't want that smoke. They know that DN is onto something here. That DN is shaking their trees and kicking in their doors. And they're going to do everything they can to slow the information down. They're not going to be truthful. They'll be deceptive. And the story continues, right? We see it with all of these organizations with ties to Epstein. No knowledge. According to Jaglin, the Gates meeting came about due to the Council of Europe's work with vaccines. But according to Council of Europe's head of communications, Daniel Holtgen, he was not aware of the meeting when DN first asked. So the head of the Council of Europe, okay, the Council of Europe, who this is all supposed to be going with, and, it had to, due to their work, had no idea that this meeting was even taking place. So please spare me. I have no knowledge of this meeting, and hence, if it happened, it was not official Council of Europe business, he wrote in an email. Of course it wasn't. It was a bunch of fellow travelers meeting up, having some dinner, and plotting the end of the world, basically. I mean, I don't even know what else to call it anymore with these people. After seeing Jagland's statement, Holken writes that the statement is true, but Holken was not involved. Jagland adds that Gates also met with the president of the European Commission with the same agenda in Strasbourg. Met thousands of people. Jagland has not answered questions on whether he has met Epstein, besides the meeting in Strasbourg and at a Labour Party event celebrating Jagland in November of 2019. Have you met Epstein? I don't have anything to say, as I have met thousands of people the last 10 years, got to know hundreds, and been to hundreds of dinners. He added that I have a principle, and if I break that, I open up to everything else as well. Oh yeah, okay. I thought you didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. Now it's I met thousands and hundreds of people. I'm so sick of it. Even in Norway, these idiots are using the same excuse. Do they all have the same playbook? Did one of their homies like Dirty Dersh write up a playbook and disperse it to all of them? I don't know what else to think because it's all the same story, right? How long are we going to accept it? Really though, how long is the bitch-ass legacy media going to accept it? While they're busy throwing barbs and talking trash about people all the time and about the hard work of good investigative journalists, they're busy sitting on their hands and crying about nonsense. When asked again whether he has met Epstein more than that one time and what he makes of having received a sex offender in Strasbourg, Jagland says, I have answered as to what kind of meeting this was. Bill Gates asked for it and explained why. He brought other people, including from IPI. I didn't have a routine of assessing the companions of the people I had meetings with. Oh yeah, well I guess, it's too much to ask. It's too much to ask to have your staff or yourself hit that old Google function and take a look at the people coming to your dinner. Nobel Prize. DN has asked Jagland if he sees an issue with the chair of the Nobel Committee inviting a possible Nobel Peace Prize laureate into his home. In an email, Jagland states that Bill Gates was not nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2013. This Jagland guy is an absolute scumbag, obviously. I've only read this little bit about him, and I know enough. This man should be spoken to by the authorities. According to the Nobel Committee, the foundation is unable to comment as the names of those nominated for the prize is kept secret for 50 years. Oh, more secrets. The Nobel Peace Prize, another worthless, garbage, stupid institution. It is contrary to our statutes to comment on who is nominated each year, the current leader, Berit Reiss-Andersen, writes in an email. She will not comment directly on Jagland's meeting with Gates. In the Nobel Committee, we have internal rules that say all members themselves must make notice of any incapacities or other matters considered important for the decision-making process. I cannot share anything from any discussions we may have had, writes Reiss-Andersen. Of course not. Keep it close to the vest. Let's hide all the information. We can't tell you anything. Jagland says he has not shared secrets from the Nobel Committee. My notion that Bill Gates was not nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2013 was based on publicly available information. As you know, every year the most likely candidates get known as soon as the list is finished in February. That list was similar to the formal list, also that year. So folks, here we are. Another story connecting Jeffrey Epstein to more powerful people in another European country. Now, how much more evidence is needed for people to understand that this is not a conspiracy theory? It has never been a conspiracy theory. That what we're dealing with is a large and vast intercontinental cover-up. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, I'll be back later on, and we'll pick it back up.
This is a Jackson Hewitt tax service announcement. Don't want to wait weeks for your tax refund? Visit Jackson Hewitt Tax Service today. File your taxes with Jackson Hewitt and ask a tax pro how you could get $500 to $4,000 fast with a no-fee refund advance. Money when you need it. A 0% APR loan from MetaBank available on a prepaid card fast, like Today Fast. Terms apply. Visit jacksonhewitt.com today. That's Jackson Hewitt.
You're easier and cheaper. It's hard not to keep you. Your menthol cigarettes, but your history goes deeper. Into black communities where big tobacco wants you to be. Been there for 50 years, but getting there wasn't free. You spent millions on billboards, commercials, and ads. Tobacco killing more of us than drugs, alcohol, AIDS, or murders together have. And to think we'd let you do this in our face is absurd. So let us go to wearenotprofit.org to be heard.